the eyes are it, and it's the visual thing that is so thrilling, so sexy, so infinitely deep. And in that book, Huxley tells you how to look at a painting by basically clear your mind, open your eyes, stand still. That's very important when viewing paintings. Stand still and let it come in. And then he gave advice. And, this is advice which I've seen acted out in both of my children. Incredibly simple advice in the world of child rearing and incredibly important. And the advice was, draw from nature. Literally, with a pencil. Draw things. Because drawing things forces you to look at them. And don't draw from pictures. If you want to draw a bowl of fruit, get a bowl of fruit. And then what you look at is you see how, you say, oh, I see, when an object is red, its shadows are not black, its shadows are deep pink. And when an object has this curvature, then it spreads light around itself like this. And as you learn to look, this is a very impersonal process. You're not thinking about your childhood traumas or any of that stuff. You're really getting into the world, and this is how the world can communicate back to you. The world is something to look at, and that attitude in the presence of psychedelics will throw open a cornucopia of riches to you. Did you want to say something? Oh, well, cannabis is in a different category. I mix cannabis with air, with light, with being awake, with being asleep. There was a period in my life when I used to awaken at 3 a.m. in order to smoke because I couldn't go from 11:30 to 6 without it. Granted, I was in Asia and the rules were different. No, I don't know what life is like without cannabis. I hear there is such a thing. But, no, what I mean is, I know people who say, well, we had a really far-out time Saturday night. We did 120 milliliters of ketamine and followed it with ecstasy a half hour later, and then we broke out the nitrous, and somebody had a little 5-MeO with them, and then I say, how was it? I say, far out. And I don't doubt it for a minute. I think I don't want to go any place that I can't find my way back to, because I might want to show somebody. And, it's sort of like the multi-body problem in mathematics. You can calculate every point in a system if there are only two bodies, but you only have to add a third before it becomes beyond calculation. And drug synergies are an absolutely unexplored area. You cannot go to the medical literature and find any papers on what happens when you combine LSD with 2CB. There isn't such a paper on this planet. So if you're going to do that, just know that nobody has ever been there before. And I don't mean intellectually, I mean physiologically. I don't know very much about the death of this writer who calls himself D.M. Turner, but he did die. And his book, his best-known book, is a book that I felt was completely irresponsible because it advocated these multiple synergistic drug doses. Stuff like I just said. 2CB plus ketamine plus nitrous plus E plus this plus that. That's not how I would do it. I say, single pure substances, and if you're unsatisfied with the experience, as Dr. Leary used to say, when in doubt, double the dose. But he didn't say, when in doubt, empty the medicine cabinet. Just double the dose. Thank you. And Tim was a pretty reckless and wild-ass kind of guy, so if he took that position, I think we don't have to be ashamed to line up behind that. Yeah, ketamine. It has a lot of enthusiasts. First thing, the most effective way to do it is by injection. Automatically, this raises flags of alarm for me. I just somewhere picked up the idea that banging things is a bad idea. But let's move past that, because it can be snorted. And anyway, ketamine is what's called a dissociative anesthetic. It is not an alkaloid. It is a veterinary anesthetic. In other words, if you have a racehorse and you need to wrap its tendon or work on it in some way, this is the drug of choice. I cannot deny that the experiences that I had, and I only had 5, were very, very interesting. I always did it in the presence of a physician, and I always did quite, as I understand it, quite high doses. In other words, I did around 140 milliliters. Milliliters. One of the things about ketamine is it's active over a huge range. Some people who roll it into their lifestyle tend to do small doses, like 40, 50, 60. When used as an anesthetic in pediatric surgery and stuff like that, 600 milliliters IV push, that would be like being hit by a freight train moving at 10 times the speed of sound. You would never know what hit you. It's a kind, for me, I'm just speaking subjectively, it was a sort of empty space. It was a light-filled space, and the metaphor that came to me was, it's like a new skyscraper, and they don't have any tenants. So there are these endless hallways lit by fluorescent lights and wonderful water coolers every 300 feet, but there's nobody there. And I talked to Rupert about this, because one of the things we've kicked around over the years is the idea that drugs are like morphogenetic fields. And so, for instance, when you take psilocybin, it takes you. And in a sense, you are participating in every psilocybin trip anybody ever had. And because it was taken for thousands of years by Mesoamerican shamans, it's been decorated by them, in a sense. It has their mark on it. And so the morphogenetic field is extremely stable. Nothing you can do in there. You may be able to carve your initials on a picnic table or something, but you're not going to be able to make major changes in that landscape. But suppose you're a drug chemist, and suppose you read one of Sasha's papers where he tosses out the thought that the O-methylation in the 4 position of the trimethoxy isomer of the this and that might be hallucinogenic, and you make it. Nobody has ever taken this drug. It's a synthetic drug. You have made it, and now you're going to take it. And in a sense, if you come down saying this was an incredibly beautiful visionary experience, the next person is very likely to have a beautiful visionary experience. If you come down saying it was nightmarish and I felt bugs crawling under my skin and stuff like this, what's happening is the morphogenetic field is crystallizing around this drug. And the feeling I had with ketamine was it's really pretty undefined territory.